Israeli media are reporting the country's forces are expanding ground operations in southern Lebanon against Hezbollah militants. They're advancing past the so-called Yellow Line. That's a self-declared Israeli military buffer zone that extends some 10 kilometers inside the Lebanese border. The advance comes after Israeli airstrikes across Lebanon blamed for 11 deaths on Monday. The escalation comes a day after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to crush the Iran-backed Hezbollah.
As many nations urge de-escalation in Lebanon, Israel's Prime Minister compares his country's campaign to motoring. And right now, it's pedal to the metal for the push against Iranian-backed militants.
We are in a war with Hezbollah. In recent weeks alone, our heroic fighters have eliminated more than 600 terrorists. I want you to know this, more than 600 terrorists. But we are not taking our foot off the pedal. On the contrary, I told them to press on the pedal even more. We will hit them.
His comments came ahead of the announcement that the Israeli army would move beyond the so-called Yellow Line. That's an Israeli-imposed demarcation line that they say is intended as a buffer zone in its war against militant group Hezbollah. And it's triggered concerns across Lebanon.
There was a lot of fear after what Netanyahu said yesterday, and people are very anxious. Every time a drone passes overhead, people get very nervous. We couldn't continue working. The people are really suffering.
Isn't Netanyahu already intensifying strikes on Lebanon? Aren't the strikes happening in Lebanon intensifying already? He's striking wherever he wants to, any location he wants. Who's going to stop him?
Israelis living in the north, near the Lebanese border, offered contrasting opinions about how the government should handle the situation.
We must keep hitting them. Otherwise, this ritual just repeats itself endlessly. Everything that happened in Lebanon is a very serious situation. It's setting off a red alert, and we need to finish the story. Otherwise, there won't be any residents left here. We lost many people. We lost many really important people to us, to everyone. Not just to me. On that side, too, they lost. And here, on this side, they also lost. In war, nobody wins. Everyone loses.
Both Israel and Hezbollah say they're fighting for their security. But, as is so often the case in war, those caught in the crossfire often have the most to lose.
For more, we're joined now by DW's Mohamad Chreyteh in Beirut. Mohamad, Israel has carried out more airstrikes in Lebanon today. What can you tell us about that?
Well, several Israeli airstrikes have hit southern and eastern Lebanon since this morning as the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel continues to escalate. This comes despite the ceasefire announced on April 16 and despite all the ongoing diplomatic efforts to put end to the war in the region. Lebanon now appears to be in more of a state of war rather than a ceasefire, really, while Beirut and some areas north of the capital enjoy a degree of calm since April 16. The situation in the south and east of the country remains very volatile, and the bombardment is still very intense. Clashes are still intense and sometimes far beyond the Litani River and the Israeli declared buffer zone in south of the country.
In the report we just showed, we saw pictures of people leaving Beirut. Tell us about the mood there at the moment.
Yeah, the country has been in a state of panic since yesterday following statements from the Israeli Prime Minister about intensifying attacks on Hezbollah. So many of those who returned to their homes in the southern suburbs of Beirut, which is a Hezbollah stronghold, have been fleeing the area again since last night, fearing a new wave of Israeli strikes on the area. Thousands are still sleeping in tents in public places and on the sidewalks here in Beirut. The authorities, the Lebanese authorities say that more than 1 million has been displaced because of this this conflict, and more families are expected to flee several areas across Beirut and the south as Israel continues to issue evacuation warnings to additional towns and villages in Lebanon.
Well, as you mentioned, this is happening during what is supposed to be a ceasefire. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah militants and infrastructure. Is that the case?
Well, Israel says it is targeting Hezbollah affiliates and military infrastructure. We've seen evidence of so in so many incidents. Although Hezbollah has been, hiding or refusing to put out figures on its losses and war dead. But we also know that Israeli strikes have hit civilian infrastructure, civilians, and repeatedly targeted paramedics and rescue workers. In fact, more than 128 workers have been killed since March 2nd, according to Lebanese health authorities, and often in what appear to be double strikes recorded on cameras.
Now, Hezbollah's leader, Naim Qassem, has been ramping up his rhetoric against the Lebanese state. How dangerous are the tensions between the militant group and the Lebanese government?
It is indeed. Naim Qassem has been increasingly using a defiant rhetoric against the government and has threatened in many speeches to take the streets and bring down the government. Lebanon is in a very difficult position. It is engaged in talks with Israel aimed at ending the occupation and ending this conflict. And at the same time, it is facing fierce criticism from Hezbollah for holding these talks. Hezbollah wants these negotiations to stop, and it openly said that Lebanon should align itself with Iran, which is leading a parallel negotiations with the United States. And according to the group, Iran is pushing for an end to the war in Lebanon as part of the broader regional deal. But the Lebanese state said that it wants to negotiate on its own behalf and that its path should remain completely separate from Iran's talks. And this is creating increasing the tension between Hezbollah and Lebanese officials and the Lebanese government.
Okay, Mohamad, thank you very much. That was our correspondent, Mohamad Chreyteh, in Beirut.